Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us on a Tuesday as we are rip-roaring and just buzzing right along. Once again, glad to have you with us. Jesse, good to see you. This is our first post-holiday show together. I did the dance with Vince yesterday. It was, went pretty good, I think. Doing okay? Doing good there?
Yeah. Just back to the grind this week. Back
All
up
right.
at 5:30 a.m. every day, working out again. So today, I did myself a little bit of a disservice because we went last night. Since we don't have a show on Monday, Monday's the only day I do the evening workout, and then the rest of the week is the early morning workouts. But I got myself all amped up last night after working out, and then accidentally drank a can of Diet Dr. Pepper as well. And so I couldn't fall asleep until like 1 a.m. and got up at 5:30, worked out, went to work, and then doing this. So just gonna be a long day, but I'm here for the long haul. Like you said, first show since I think the Festivus show.
It is. Yesterday
That
was my
we
first show
did.
since Festivus. 2 weeks ago today was Festivus, actually.
Yeah. So looking up. The weather is better. All the snow is melting. It's gonna be in like the 50s the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. I don't need your weather forecast.
Looking forward to that.
Got enough of the weather. It's going to be up. It's going to be down. It's January in the Midwest. Got like fill in the blank what it's going to look like on any given day. Some exciting news. I talked about this yesterday. We've got a new morning show here on Sports Radio WSBT in South Bend with the one and only Brady Quinn, 2 pros and a cup of Joe. Brady Quinn, along with LeVar Arrington, the hosts of that show. You can hear it every weekday morning at 6 o'clock. Right here, and we are working on something with Mr. Quinn right now. I don't want to let anything out of the bag just yet, but efforting as we go. 2 pros and a cup of Joe, though, with Brady Quinn. Good stuff. Some news today. There's some Notre Dame related news we'll talk about in a second. The Washington Commanders got rid of both coordinators, including Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator, today. Had you heard this?
No, the NFL, and I'll save a lot of my thoughts for rapid fire.
Okay.
I read today's rundown. I don't want to spoil anything.
It's a start that puts you ahead of Vince.
The NFL just baffles me. Jaden Daniels was hurt all year.
I know.
Mariota was hurt the last month of the season, but we're going to fire the offensive coordinator. I just don't really get it. And
apparently, the defense, he and Quinn didn't see eye to eye on exactly what they wanted. Even though, as you said, Jaden Daniels was the freaking rookie of the year last year. Had a pretty good
year. How do you go from rookie of the year and playoffs as an OC to your starting quarterback and backup quarterback being out like all year, and you get fired because of it? But I heard Kingsbury was throwing his hat back in the head coaching circle. So I don't know if maybe that played a part of it. And the thing about the defense is it's like Dan Quinn's a defensive head coach. So what does that say also about Dan Quinn in that situation?
Maybe he made an executive decision and decided that he knew more than the defensive coordinator and made a move. ... Speaking of defensive coordinators, Dallas Cowboys got rid of Matt Eberflus, the former Chicago Bears head coach, and, of course, former Indianapolis Colts defensive coordinator as well. This one, you and I were basically, and a lot of Cowboys fans were basically hoping, praying, and it happened. Eberflus seems like a nice guy, but just did not cut it. And there was a lot of, we talked about this early in the season, a lot of similarities to what was going on with Chris Ash here at Notre Dame in terms of guys more suited to playing man-to-man, but they were playing a lot more zone under Eberflus, same things that they were doing under Ash here at Notre Dame. And the difference was with Dallas, it continued all year long, and Eberflus ended up paying the price. But he was a guy, like the reason he was back there to begin with is the Jerry Jones ego piece to this, because Matt Eberflus was a position coach, a linebackers coach with the Dallas Cowboys before he became a defensive coordinator for the first time with the Indianapolis Colts. And, of course, he used that to springboard him to head coach of the Chicago Bears. So Jerry, had to reel him back in when he became available, one, because he was affordable, which Jerry is very good at doing, going out and getting affordable guys both on the roster and the staff, but also like Jerry's got that FOMO. Like he wanted to be able to pat himself on the back if it worked out and be like, we're the ones who found this guy to begin with. Well, it blew up in their face, and now Matt Eberflus is out on the street once again.
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. I'm just glad Dallas did it early. They usually, trip over their feet, wait a couple weeks, and then wait a couple more weeks to interview some guys because they think they've got their guy or they're locked in. There's a lot of good defensive talent in the coaching world that this cycle. So I'm glad Dallas did it early, and I think that they have an opportunity to go out and get a really good defensive coordinator. And then to kind of wrap this up, I thought it was interesting. I saw a quote from Dante Fowler, defensive lineman for the Cowboys, with the media, and he basically was like, "Yeah, when you think you're the smartest guy in the room and your scheme is untouchable, and you try to force it on people, and you don't really have the personnel for it, this is kind of the result you get. Why don't you adapt the defense to the personnel you have?"
Pretty telling.
Basically.
Yep.
And I think that's very relatable to what Chris Ash was doing at the beginning of the season. But he quickly found out that he needed to adjust, and he did. And Notre Dame got back on track and ended up being a really solid defense.
That's correct.
The last 9 games of the season. So
more than solid. They got back to playing at a championship level defensively.
Don't say that too loud. There's a lot of Chris Ash haters still out there.
Well, I think most of it came because they missed the playoffs and everyone needed a scapegoat. And so they went right back and pointed at those first games. Some of it's fair. Some of it's fair. Josh says he missed the show yesterday. Says it was a stressful day yesterday. Well, I don't know. I'll just say you've come to the right place, Josh, because it was stressful here on the show yesterday as well, with a lot of hand-wringing about transfer portal, lack of moves. We're going to continue to talk about what's going on and what's not going on with the transfer portal with Notre Dame today. The latest news that came out just a few minutes before the show started here today, Notre Dame linebacker Preston Zinter is in the transfer portal. He just finished his sophomore season, played 26 games over the last 2 seasons for the Fighting Irish, predominantly on special teams, big special teams contributor all over the place. Problem is he's got a lot of good talent in front of him on the depth chart, and he's going to go out and look for an opportunity to get more actual playing time at his position at linebacker next season. Not overly surprising, I don't think. Another guy lower on the depth chart. I guess he basically just looking for an opportunity to go out and actually get some snaps, be able to play someplace.
Yeah, I think that Zinter is definitely that guy that falls into, the category of he's a nice depth piece, probably wasn't going to see a whole lot of meaningful minutes or playing time outside of special teams. And so, in my opinion, you can't fault a guy in today's portal era, NIL era, and obviously someone who has aspirations at playing the next level. You have to put yourself out there on tape. You have to play meaningful minutes, at your position. And so I don't blame Preston Zinter at all for going to the portal and saying, hey, I want to bet on myself here. I think I can contribute and be a starter, at least kind of be in a 1-2 platoon somewhere, and get some good tape out there with the aspirations of going on to the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking here to see. I just saw someone in the chat say something about John Harbaugh. According to Adam Schefter, John Harbaugh is out as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. Ian Rappaport reporting the same thing. John Harbaugh out after 18 seasons, a Super Bowl championship, 180 wins in the regular season, 180 and 113. Add John Harbaugh to the list. He didn't get the axe on Black Monday, but I don't know if it's Black Tuesday or what exactly you call it. Harbaugh getting the axe today as well. So
that's surprising to me.
I thought it was fairly surprising as well, based on the comments though that Lamar Jackson made after the game the other day when he was asked about Harbaugh coming back, and he basically was like, I just got done playing this season. You want me to talk about next season? Like kind of a non-answer answer, and I think that maybe answered the question a little bit louder.
So do you think that this means that they're picking Lamar over Harbaugh at this point, at this junction
Feels like maybe. And the fact that it's 18 years and you had what is Lamar, a 3-time MVP or a 2-time?
Two-time.
2-time MVP. In either case, multi-time MVP, and you didn't even make the playoffs. You regress. Now, he was hurt for a good chunk of this season, but I think you can look at the way the Ravens. James is obviously a Ravens fan. It's like, by the way, you've got the biggest, arguably best running back in the world in the backfield, and you're not using him that much. That feels kind of odd to me.
Yeah, I just, with the rumors going around that Lamar was kind of unhappy and that that there was a potential that he was going to maybe go to Miami this offseason, or the last 2-3 years have been about, can the Ravens keep Lamar Jackson? Are they going to keep Lamar Jackson? I know they need to restructure his contract. But if I'm a head coach, that's one of the better situations that you could walk yourself into right now. Like,
let's save that for rapid fire for sure, because we're adding that to the list of the openings right now. Transfer portal. We've only got so much time today. We've actually got an interview with Notre Dame women's basketball player Vanessa De Jesus that'll be coming up a little bit later in the hour. We kind of rearranged the first hour of the show a little bit so we can talk a little bit longer about transfer portal stuff. Not much going on right now other than Preston Zinter going into the portal. Still nobody that Notre Dame has signed from the portal. What do you think about how things have gone in these first 4+ days?
Yeah, like I'm not going to get up here and lie and say it's been, this great thing, or on the flip side of that, it's end of the world and we all need to hit panic mayday button. I think it's been a little bit disappointing. But what did you expect? The big names are always going to go first. And I think that whether you want to admit it or not, IU is on a legendary run right now. They are on an absolute heat-seeking missile run right now. And I think that's the only part.
Well, let me just follow up with
me about this,
because how much of the perception of things of what Indiana has already done, like they got Nick Marsh, one of the guys that Notre Dame wanted, the wide receiver from Michigan State, and then of course they also got Josh Burnham to transfer from Notre Dame to IU. How much does that sort of add to whatever you feel about what Notre Dame hasn't done so far? How much just does it amplify the angst, the fact that Indiana has been so successful so far?
Yeah, it does amplify it to a degree. The only one that I'm like truly upset about is that wide receiver. I think there's plenty of defensive line, defensive tackle talent, depth in the transfer portal, but I think the high-end wide receivers, especially Marsh, there's not as many, right? Like it's kind of very top heavy, and so you wanted to hit on that one. I guess I don't want to say this out loud, but I'm going to. I'm going to plug
my ears.
I'm going to stir the pot here a little bit.
Do I need a censor button here? Are you about to light the world on fire? What are you going to do?
I think so. I would say it would be an embarrassment for Notre Dame if IU wins the Heisman this year, the national championship this year, and dominates them in the portal.
Man, no kidding. Like
you're getting outbeat in your own state, and you're getting beat by a team that's been relevant for 2 seasons now. And I get it. It's a different era, and we've got NIL and we've got portal, but Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship since '88. IU might win it this year. I think they're the odds-on favorite to probably win it this year.
They are the odds-on favorite, whether or not they actually do. I think this Oregon rematch has me pretty intrigued. But I mean, I think I've said to you and a couple of other people, like if it ends up being Indiana and Miami playing for the national championship,
So I got called a bad take because we don't need the portal. We recruit. Indiana's a whole portal team. It doesn't matter. How you win national championships doesn't matter. And if IU wins it this year, that's all that matters.
But I think that there's some validity to what Tuco is saying there in the YouTube chat, because this is why, and Vince and I obviously talked a lot about this yesterday, but this is why you still have to, it's very short-sighted to just, blow up here the fact that Notre Dame hasn't done anything. Would we like to have seen more done? Absolutely. Were they completely prepared, Notre Dame, for the transfer portal? Sure doesn't appear so from everything that we've seen and heard so far. Like the fact that you did let Nick Marsh go to Indiana before ever even stepping foot on Notre Dame's campus and making a visit here. But the fact that Notre Dame has to pay not just transfer portal players, because everyone obviously has to pay portal players, and everyone has to pay, high school guys as well. But it's different. Like if you're comparing Notre Dame and Indiana, which is the conversation right now, Notre Dame has the number 2 incoming freshman 2026 class in the nation. That costs money. There's a pretty good amount of revenue that had to be invested to get the number 2 class in the nation, to be able to stack all that talent together, a bunch of 4- and 5-star guys, and get them to come here to Notre Dame, and you end up with the number 2 class in the nation. That is going to cost a lot more in NIL and rev share, and however you're going to combine this. What Notre Dame has to pay to have the number 2 recruiting class in the nation is a lot more than what Indiana has to pay for a bunch of 3-star guys who are rated anywhere between like mid-30s and mid-40s, depending on which recruiting service and which rankings that you're looking at. So there's a lot more that Notre Dame had to invest in its freshman class compared to what Indiana has, had to invest in its recruiting class. So Indiana has to go out. I mean, look at how Curt Cignetti has built this thing. He built it on transfer portal guys. He didn't just show up in Indiana. It's like wave his magic wand and give everybody that Cignetti look, and all of a sudden everybody was playing differently. He had to bring a bunch of guys with him. He's had to go out in the portal both years. He's had transfer portal quarterbacks both years. And look, I'm not saying this as a pejorative at all. I'm just comparing what Notre Dame has to do versus what Indiana has to do. And so Notre Dame has to put a lot more investment in its high school recruits because they are so much higher rated 4- and 5-star guys versus predominantly 3-star guys that Indiana has to invest in. The investment there for the high school recruits is a lot higher for Notre Dame. And again, Notre Dame doesn't have to go out and fill as many holes as what Indiana is going to have to fill, because Notre Dame predominantly, and again, Vince and I talked about this yesterday, most of the guys who are going to end up starting for Notre Dame when the 2026 season starts are already on the roster, or, maybe part of that incoming freshman class as well. So yeah, they're going to fill specific needs with the transfer portal, Notre Dame is, but Indiana has to invest a whole lot more of its resources in the portal to get guys to go there, because they're not going to be able to get the same kind of high school recruit. So that's kind of that's sort of the trade-off that I look at if I'm comparing those two programs right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like short-term stocks versus long-term stocks. Notre Dame goes long-term, goes heavy in the investment, more long-term kind of success. And IU goes for the very short-term success. And so I agree with what you're saying, that it's a better look, and Notre Dame's resources are more tied up in some of these recruits, which gives, IU kind of that flexibility to go out and say, hey, we need you right now, and we'll throw everything we have at you right now. But really, at the end of the day, it's only 3-4-star recruits. And so I think that's the biggest thing as Notre Dame fans, why you should not, like, big picture, you should not be panicking, because Notre Dame's roster is already more talented than IU's, in my opinion. Notre Dame just needs a couple fill guys, a couple role players, a couple, depth pieces here or there. IU goes to the portal because they need starters. You know what I mean? They need starters and they need multiple starters. Notre Dame goes to the portal for a couple, basically at the end of the year. They got some guys who go to the NFL. They got some guys who transfer, but they need to fill a couple spots here and there. And so they're very much looking through, a lens of specific things they're looking for position-wise. IU is more or less like, you've had a good season, come on down. We're open for everyone. So
we are open for business. That's right.
I don't think Notre Dame, again, you asked me how I felt at the beginning. I'm only upset that they lost out on Marsh, because I think that there's a ton of defensive line talent. I think they'll end up with some really good guys out of the portal on the defensive line. That's their biggest hole right now. Would I have liked to see them add a wide receiver? Sure. But I still believe in a lot of the talent on Notre Dame's wide receiver position group. But I do still think they need to add at least one more. So
no, I do too, especially, like you're talking about that boundary receiver. That's the biggest need that they've got, is getting that big-bodied guy a la Malachi Fields. That's still what they have to address. And there are still a couple of guys on the board. And quite honestly, if they're not able to get some hits with a couple of the higher ranked guys who are still out there, look, I know a lot of people were disappointed that, the Michigan State guy is off the board, Marsh, and now we've got to go after the Rutgers guy because he's the next highest ranked guy, and then he commits someplace else. A lot of people, myself included, weren't necessarily sold on the Rutgers guy to begin with. There's still a couple of pretty good ones out there, in Isaiah Canyon from Georgia Tech and the guy from Boston College, Reed Harris. Again, like you're talking about both of these guys in that 6'4", 6'5" range, very similar kind of bodies anyway to what Malachi Fields had. Not quite as productive as what Fields was at Virginia, I guess in 2024, 2 years ago before he came to Notre Dame. But at the same time, the kind of production that both Canyon and Harris had this year for Georgia Tech and Boston College is fairly similar to what Fields had here at Notre Dame. And, like they would still step in and you would have a guy like Jordan Faison still around. You would still have Jaden Greathouse and some of these other guys around him as well. So, they might not be able to make quite the highlight plays that Malachi Fields made this year, but at the same time, I think that either one of those guys could be really steady boundary, go up and get you some contested catch type guys. And you're absolutely right. Like that is still what they need to add to this team.
Yeah. And I think that next season at the wide receiver position is largely going to be predicated around Greathouse's success. Like he's got to have a season. Like there's just really no other way around it. I think that they'll end up adding some sort of boundary wide receiver. Whether that guy was at the very top of their wish list, we'll never know. And where that person ends up falling on their ultimate wide receiver wish list, we will ultimately never know. But, I think that this kind of largely comes back to a bigger conversation of chicken or egg. I believe in CJ Carr. I believe in Mike Denbrock. And I think when you combine those two, the wide receiver position, as long as they're not dropping passes or, extremely slow, sluggish out there, it's going to take care of itself because you have one of the most talented quarterbacks in college football and you have one of the best schematic offensive coordinators in all of college football. And so while I think the wide receiver position will take care of itself for the most part, it would still be nice to add just a really the type of build that Malachi Fields had, just someone who can go up and get a ball when you need him to. I always come back to the Michael Floyd type wide receiver.
Sure.
That's what they need. They just need, because they've got inside slots that are fast. Jaden Greathouse can work over the middle of the field too. They just need someone who can push vertically and also go up vertically as well. Because Carr loves that outside shoulder ball on the sideline. And that's a perfect type of pass for a boundary wide receiver. So you just need to find someone who has hands, reliable hands to catch that sucker. Because the ball is going to be there.
Exactly it. Yeah.
The ball is going to be there.
Very accurate. We've seen that. He's very confident and very, very precise for the most part in his ability to, make those kind of throws. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, defensive tackle though, this is, I don't want to say what's concerning me, but at the same time, you do have to let it play out. Penn State defensive tackle Xavier Gilliam was on campus today, and you look at him and the kind of body that he's got, 6'2" and over 300 pounds. They need some beef like that in the middle of the line, and this is to me I would put that wide receiver at number 2, but they've got to go out and add a couple bodies and add a couple guys, with some beef on them who can play in the middle of that defensive tackle position. So that's really what I'm looking at, is when is that going to happen? Who is that going to be? That kind of thing. And the guy from Wake Forest, I don't know exactly how to say his last name. properly. Mateen Ibir Ogba. I'm not sure. I've never actually heard it pronounced, but he was supposed to come and now he's not going to come. And it sounds to me like he is just out there looking for the biggest offer that he can get and, go play for that. And, and I guess more power to you if that's what you're looking for. But I think that the angst just kind of continues to grow the longer this draws on. Cause honestly, I would have even thought that, they might have signed up a kicker by now, but.
So do you think that there's a reason for the madness? Because that's the unfortunate part of, when the portal opens, we expect I think there were some expectations set. And when things didn't happen day one of the portal, immediately everyone was like, well, this is a failure. Why isn't Notre Dame getting the guys that they need? And to me, I feel like they're being a little bit picky here. Obviously they went after their top targets, and whether or not, they're still pursuing them and maybe some of those guys have decided elsewhere. I still think Notre Dame has a big board. And I still think they're going to get majority of the guys that they wanted. And so I really think what this boils down to is there just has to be some sort of patience because the portal is open for 2 weeks.
They're going to be fine because, look at the last few years. Now, again, the situation is a little bit different this year because you missed the playoffs. You were the first team out of the playoffs. Basically, you felt like you had a team that could, at a very minimum, compete for a national championship. And when you look at how some of these games have played out, I think we all feel like they definitely were a legit national championship contender had they been in the field. So you lose a few guys and you look to augment. And I think that everyone thought that was going to kind of give them some earlier returns, but it just hasn't done it. But at the same time, again, when you look at the first few years that Marcus Freeman has been here and how they've addressed the portal, they haven't necessarily gone out and picked off every guy at the top of every position ranking and brought them in here to Notre Dame, but they've still been just fine. So, you don't necessarily have to get the number one guy, especially when you have to do this, on not a true salary cap, but very similar to the salary cap that these NFL teams have. There's going to be some different limits on your spending, so it's going to look a lot different in who you're going to be able to go out and get. And a lot of these guys are just looking for the biggest checks as well. So that's also part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's the one of the more unfortunate parts of it because I understand you want to maximize your window and make money and all that stuff, but to me the perfect combination is where can I make money and where can I compete for a national championship. And I think when you're looking at the college football landscape, there's maybe 10 to 15 schools who can do that, who can say we'll give you a good amount of money and we can also compete here for a national championship. And Notre Dame is definitely on that list.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I've got an interview with Notre Dame women's basketball player Vanessa De Jesus. We've got a lot of Marcus Freeman talk coming up in rapid fire and some other Notre Dame talk. After the De Jesus interview, I want to ask you about this Mercer quarterback, Braden Atkinson. I want to talk about that. So we'll do that in a little bit as well. But a timeout, and then we've got the interview with Vanessa De Jesus coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Along with Jesse Stiers, I'm Sean Stiers. Hope you're having a good day. Before we get to the interview here with Vanessa De Jesus, there was a question in the chat from Mike in the YouTube chat. Don't forget, if you're out driving around listening to the radio right now and you want to send us a question anytime during the show, you can just go to the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube channel or the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel and ask us your question. Mike asks, would you consider the portal a success if they get Reed at wide receiver? I assume that he is talking about Reed Harris, a good kicker, the kid from Utah, and the kid from Utah is the defensive end, John Henry Daly. And then Xavier Gillum, the defensive tackle from Penn State, and Keon Keeley, who, of course, is a former Notre Dame commit, who is a defensive end at Alabama. My answer to that would be yes. I would say that that would be a success because you would get really good quality at each of those positions. I'm really skeptical, though, and I know that a lot of people – everyone's ears and eyes perked up when they saw Keon Keeley go into the transfer portal after he obviously had committed to Notre Dame at one point, ended up going to Alabama. He's been there for 3 years now. And the biggest issue with Keeley, beyond just if he wants to come to Notre Dame and if Notre Dame would want him, is the fact that he would be an undergrad transfer who had been at a school for 3 years. So I would be pretty skeptical as to whether or not that would be a guy who would academically qualify to come here to Notre Dame. But if we're just like taking that part of it out and you just put those names and those guys, I would say, yeah. Although, again, I don't think defensive end is nearly as big a need as defensive tackle. So they still need another defensive tackle over two defensive ends out of the portal at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm definitely more concerned about the inside defensive tackle positions. I think out on the outside, there's a ton of talent there between Boubacar, Bryce, Logan Thomas. But to me, defensive line is never a position where you can have too many players in today's college football, in my opinion.
Right.
With how much guys are rotating, 1 through 3 are going to see some reps. And I would say too, I haven't seen a ton of film on John Daly. I think that's the Utah defensive end.
John Henry
Daly. But he's a guy who could also work to the inside as well. I think you see that a lot at Notre Dame is those guys can be multiple on positions, especially when you get into second and long, third and long. They tend to kind of go, with guys on the inside that can provide more of a pass rush, and obviously not a guy who's just there to eat a double team in the run game.
Yeah. B. Tome asks, how do academics come into play when a player wants to go to a different school for NIL? Well, it comes down to whether or not the school on the academic side is going to let him in or not. Everyone's got standards. And Notre Dame is obviously a private school. And, I'll say this based on everything that I've seen and heard based on, with multiple sports, even though USC is a private school, the academic standards in terms of who Notre Dame is going to take as a transfer, regardless of sport, is higher than what you're going to find at USC, as an example. And then there are other schools that are like that as well. So it's obviously not just NIL. You still have to get into the school, and Notre Dame isn't going to let a player just show up for a semester and take a paycheck and not go to classes. That's just not how they operate. So you've got to be in pursuit of a degree, and your transcripts and everything that you've got from wherever you are, wherever you're coming from, has to line up in terms of being degree seeking and your ability to get a degree once you get here. All right, we're going to talk more Notre Dame football coming up in a little bit, but right now I'm going to welcome into the show Vanessa De Jesus, a guard from the Notre Dame women's basketball team. We are happy to be joined by Vanessa De Jesus from the Notre Dame women's basketball team. She's in her 6th year of college basketball after transferring to Notre Dame from Duke. Let me ask you this, Vanessa, I'm sure you probably don't like follow what's going on with the football transfer portal, but it just opened a few days ago and it's a little bit crazy right now. So I'm curious, as someone who just went through transfer portal process yourself, obviously in a different sport, but you went through the portal, like what was that whole thing like for you going through that?
Yeah, definitely. For me, it was a lot. Kind of reminded me how it was, in high school. But now there's so many other aspects that I didn't have to deal with as a, incoming high schooler. Like there's NIL now, and just a bunch of, portal open so many different opportunities. And just for me, a lot of it was taking my time and not letting myself feel rushed, or like, again, remembering like what my goals and like what I really wanted in a program. So I think having that core like group was really important for me, like having my family and people in my corner who I could talk to and kind of guide me in this like big decision, because it was my last year. So for me, just taking my time and like praying about it was like big, because it can be a lot, very overwhelming.
Is it kind of cool to be like re-recruited all over again?
Yeah, it was fun talking to coaches and seeing who wants you, and kind of hearing what other programs do. Because I was at Duke for a very long time, so it was a really cool experience in that sense of it, even though it can be a lot.
How long did it take until you heard from the first school, like once your name went in the portal?
Yeah, it was actually really fast, because I guess once you do it, they send you a notification in the NCAA portal system, and then once that happens, all the coaches can see it, and probably within the hour, I was already getting like text messages from schools. And then that day I probably had a good couple of calls. Like every hour I had a call. So yeah, it was going by fast. And I think especially for transfers, unlike high schoolers, we know the routine, we know how it is, we know what we're looking for since we've been in college for so long. So the process moves way faster in that sense of coaches know that we know what to look for, and it just goes by faster.
How many visits did you end up taking?
Yeah, I ended up taking 3. I scheduled 6, but I kind of knew after Notre Dame, I took 1 more to Baylor. But when I was there, I just had Notre Dame in the back of my head. Like, it's kind of like that gut feeling, like, So for me, I didn't want to waste my time. I knew what I was looking for, and Notre Dame really just had that on my visit. So
what were some of the things that you're looking for, and what stood out after coming here and visiting with Coach Ivey and her staff?
Yeah,
and the team, I'm sure, as well.
Yes, the whole team. It was great. Just when I landed, Hannah and Cass were the ones who were there to pick me up, along with Sherelle, because it was really late and the coaches were coming back from the draft with Sony and Maddie and all of them in the draft. So for me, a big thing was like the family feel. Talking to Coach Ivey on the phone, obviously I could feel that, but seeing them in person, how they interact with one another, the girls, the team, that was a big thing for me, because I understand how important that chemistry off the court is to on the court. And I really want to be around people who just, want to go to war for one another. So that was a big thing. And then obviously just the development, hearing how Coach Ivey and the other coaches see me in the system, and kind of, again, just growing me to the player that I want to become was a big part. Just because I know there's a lot of things I still need to work on, and just having that vision of seeing how they see me and how they see my growth was a big thing. And being guard that's a huge legacy, that to be a part of other great guards, and just being able to play with other great players who have the same mindset of wanting to win and get better every day. And then just Notre Dame itself as a university, like academics are really big to me, my faith also. So having that aspect off the court was another big part of me committing.
Well, I mean, it's not like you hadn't challenged yourself academically when you were at Duke. You had because you were there for 5 years, obviously, which but for everybody else, like, so you've got an undergrad degree, you've already got a master's degree, and now you're working on another one. Did you think that you'd end up with 3 degrees by the time it was all said and done, when you were coming out of high school?
I did not, honestly. I thought maybe 2 if I could do my undergrad in my first 3 years and then my last year. But obviously with COVID, sit out that whole year, so I didn't really play that whole year, and then going through my own injury, it kind of just opened the opportunity that I just didn't want to take for granted. From both these universities, just how great they are. So yeah, did not expect it at all.
I forgot about the fact that Duke ultimately, like, you played a few games and then you didn't play, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
How tough was going through something like that? Because obviously everyone else had shut down at the end of the previous season, and then the majority of teams were playing, but there were other schools. I think Virginia was another one that didn't play that year. What was that?
It was tough for me, because coming in as a freshman, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, college basketball, I could finally play, like, playing in front of the Duke fans, and just like, a whole nother level. And then I show up and there's no fans at the game. We're in masks. You're getting COVID tested every day. You can't even hang out with your teammates in the same room. And then only playing 4 games. So that was just, for me, very like disappointing in that sense. I was just so excited coming into college. But again, just kind of look at the positives of it, just going again close to the team. But yeah, I just wanted to play that year, but we only had 4 games until we opted out.
Yeah, that had to be rough. And again, I mean, again, like everyone was going through a lot of different things. I'm curious with your current master's, because I think it's biology is your undergrad, and then your first master's is in liberal studies. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you're working on a nonprofit administration. So what's like the career trajectory that you're looking at as you go forward when you're done with all of this stuff?
Yeah, I think, after basketball, having a nonprofit is one thing I've thought about. For me, like my mentors and the people who really just supported me and really believed in me have been a big part of where I am, and just giving back to, others, my culture, like the younger generation. I think that's something that I would want to do if I made my own nonprofit, whether that's with kids or in sports. So that's why it was a big part of why I wanted to do that program. And then, yeah, either something in sports or business or medicine. Those are like my 3 interests. And I think being here at Notre Dame is a great alumni system here, and great like networking opportunities to meet other people who are doing different things in the business world or in the sports world. And then just all of them have been really like welcoming to like meet with me one-on-one, just kind of picking their brains, hearing how their jobs go and their own journeys. So for me, it's kind of just right now being open to anything and learning about different jobs in the world, because who knows what will happen next.
I mean, it's quite a resume to have 2 degrees from Duke and then another one from Notre Dame. I don't even think Riley Leonard probably has that. So
yeah, it was a lot, but I made it through.
That's right. Well, so you went back to Duke for the first time this weekend. You and Notre Dame obviously played there. What was that like, going back to Cameron Indoor for the first time as a visiting player after being there and playing there for so long?
Yeah, it was so weird. I remember walking in and it felt like I was gone for so long, but also felt very familiar in a sense. But from the warm-ups, just being on the other side of it was a different perspective I had never experienced before. But then again, I felt that, I don't know, like kind of like a comfort feeling when I looked out, and the fans, they had some posters I saw of like, "We love you, V," or something like that. And I was like, oh, they have great fans out there. So for me, it was like bittersweet, like being back at Duke, but then also like playing against them and staying focused for the game.
I mean, it was a pretty good crowd out there as well. So were you nervous at all about going into that, going back there for the first time?
Yeah, I was like nervous and excited. I think I just had been there for so long, and I know some of the workers, like just seeing the people I know from there, from the workers to like other staff. And obviously my old players. So for me, it was nervous, but also exciting just to go against them, play again in that gym, one of my favorite gyms to play in. So for me, it was just really more of an exciting moment to just get back out there.
Had to feel pretty good to hit that 3 at the end of the first half too.
Yeah, I was like, I know this gym, so I'm like, I knew that was gonna go in. I've played there for so long, like I can do that with my eyes closed.
You could tell they had a lot of respect for you though, because they weren't giving you a whole lot of open looks out there most of the day. So, how would you describe the time that you spent there at Duke?
Yeah, it was great. I think I really grew a lot from my freshman year to like the last year I was there on the court as a player. They really developed me in like defense and just like overall like my IQ like on the court. And then just the coaching staff, they're all very supportive and on the court and off the court, just being there for me, whether that was like through my own injury. The supporting staff was really there for me, and just the school itself, they have great professors. All the other students are really great fans. So overall it was a great experience. Obviously got 2 amazing degrees from there. So honestly, I was grateful to have been able to go there for those past couple of years.
I'm curious, you talked before, obviously, about why you ultimately came to Notre Dame and, meeting some of the players and coaches and that kind of stuff. Having played against them for a few years, on the other side of things when you were at Duke, what were maybe some of your impressions from the outside before you had ever really been in here of this Notre Dame program?
Yeah, I knew like they play hard. Like you watch Hannah and her her like tenacity is something that's just so contagious, and you can see it on the other end of how her teammates just rally in with her and just want to play so hard. So that was one thing, and obviously just the skill set again, the guard you like all the guards and just development there from the assistant coaches to Coach Ivy. They really understand the game. They obviously are winning program, winning those national championships. So for me, I knew just the level of Notre Dame basketball was and kind of that legacy, and that was something that again just really drew me in.
You know, it's curious. You know, we're just talking about the tenacity and that kind of thing. And like when I think of Duke women's basketball, defense, I think is one of the first things that comes to mind. And I think you can probably say that to an pretty good extent with Notre Dame as well. But they're different kinds of defense. So how would you sort of describe the differences between the two?
Yeah, I know. I realized I come in here, I'm like, oh, it's also defense, but in its own way.
Right.
Yeah, I would say here, one of the difference, I feel like it's just like the on ball, like the steals, like on the ball and off the ball. I feel like from Hannah to Cass to myself, and even when KK was played, we get a lot in the passing lanes. And I think it's that even in the zone, because at Duke, it was mainly man-to-man defense. So a lot of like that kind of tenacity was either pressuring the ball or like being on help side. But here, our zone was a big part of our defense, and they've been doing it for many years. Even Coach Ivy said like that's a big part of why they ended up winning championships, is having that solid zone and man-to-man defense. And in the zone, people think it's just to slow people down, but for us, it's about speeding people up, getting them turn the ball over, getting the passing lane. So I think that's a different kind of defensive tenacity that you see is in the zone defense.
When you mentioned Hannah, and obviously the roster looks a lot different this year compared to last year with the addition of you and some other players from the transfer portal, but Hannah is one of the main constants here. So I'm curious what it's like playing with her as opposed to against her, the ACC player of the year type player that you saw obviously last year, and now seeing it up close and playing with her every day.
Yeah, definitely way better to have her on your side. I'm like, this is way better than her trying to pressure up on me and, getting into you. But yeah, like even just starting in practice, she makes you want to play better. Like seeing her how she plays on both ends, it's like something you just feed off of. And for me, I feel like she's that fiery, and I kind of bring that more like, I guess like older veteran, like calmer aspect to it. So I think we do a good job of playing off one another. Whether that's her kind of like firing me up when I'm like maybe too like relaxed, or me maybe bringing in that composure when things are going crazy. So I feel like that yin yang kind of feeling is really good, and that was a big part of why I was just super excited to play with Hannah. One from her tenacity, but also I think she could help me grow as a point guard. The things that she's great in, and the things that I can learn from her, and hopefully like I can provide some wisdom of playing all these years to her as well.
And I think you kind of need some of that yin and like not everyone can go 100 miles an hour all the time. Right? Like pretty much all of your numbers on the court this year are career highs, whether it's scoring or rebounding and steals. And, that's been such a big part of your game. How do you feel most different as a player right now?
Yeah, I think just impacting the game in multiple levels. I think as a point guard, a big part of it is making like your teammates better around you. And just for me, that comes from, taking care of the ball and the assists and making plays for my team. But also, like you said, showing it on defense. Like defense is something that's underrated. And I think for me this year, that was something I wanted to bring, again, coming from Duke, who's also a great defensive team, to here, the Notre Dame, another great defensive program, is getting the passing lanes more, making plays off the ball, and just rebounding too. We're a small group, not many bodies. So for me, I'm maybe like the fourth tallest person. Just kidding.
There were some times, especially in that Duke game, like they had a lot of size. There were a couple times where you grab a rebound. I'm like, Dad, Jesus has got it. It's like
exactly.
I didn't even see you, and then the next thing you know, you've got the ball. So
exactly. So for me, it's just like impact game and all those other levels, and just like just the typical point guard things. And then obviously being ready to score when needed. So yeah, it's just growing all of that aspects.
You're from California, but you played in the Women's Asia Cup over the summer for the Philippines. And I'm curious because you see it a lot in the Olympics, where like there'll be someone from here in the States, and they're not necessarily from another country, but they'll go and they'll play in the Olympics, whether it's Italy or whatever country it happens to be, because of their family heritage. So what's what's that process like of, going through and playing for another country like the Philippines like that?
Yeah, so I was actually in touch with the head coach of the Philippine national team in high school. But like going to Duke, I really just wanted like to focus on that and kind of like build myself my role there. But then once it was my junior year, I kind of reached out to the coach that you need to get your dual citizenship passport, and that whole process is them kind of like getting all the documents of your birth certificate, your parents, just to make sure that you're Filipino. So once so once I like showed my interest of it, my coach helped me gather that information, kind of brought it back to the Philippines, like the embassy, and having them like all look at it just to verify who I am. And luckily for me, the process was really fast because they just wanted me on the team. So like within a week, I had my I had my passport. They sent someone to the Philippines to get it for me and bring it back. But usually it takes a little longer than that. But I think it was a month before the first FIBA Asia Cup that I was going to play in. So they were just really getting the process quick. But it's just getting your dual citizenship, and then once you have that, then you're able to play with the team.
So had you ever been to the Philippines before playing for the Philippine national team?
When I was younger, I went once for like a family vacation. But other than that, I had been like at least 10 years since I've been back there.
So what was that experience like getting to play in that FIBA Asia Cup?
Yeah, it was so fun. I remember the first practice. It was some like language barriers because a lot of them are from the Philippines, but we can speak like basketball terms. But other than that, like I really grew a lot. It's playing, most of the teams we played against were other countries with other pro players. So for me, it was really just growing that other side of the game that I hadn't really been like exposed to, just the physicality, different like styles of play from like different countries, and then and just the pace of the game was way different. But again, I had a great support. It was super fun just to represent my culture. That's a big part of like why I play is like my family and all the sacrifices they have done for me, and just how big basketball is back in the Philippines is something that I don't take for granted. Just to represent them. So I really enjoyed it. Obviously, did it another year. 2 years after the other FIBA Asia Cup, just because how great it was the first time.
Sure. All right. Good stuff. Vanessa De Jesus with the Notre Dame women's basketball team, year 6 in college. She might finish here one of these days, but a long rest of the season to go, with 2 months plus of the season to go before things wrap up. Vanessa, appreciate you doing this. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll see you out there this Thursday night.
Thank you.
Again, that's Vanessa De Jesus, and she and the Fighting Irish are in action Thursday night against Boston College at Purcell Pavilion. 6 o'clock tip-off time, 5:45 pregame here on Sports Radio WSBT and the Notre Dame Radio Network. We've got a ton of football still to get to in the second hour of the show. We call it Rapid Fire, and we will be rolling through tons of questions. So if you're just logging in on the YouTube side right now, you can always throw your question in there, and we'll see if we can get to them when we roll through Rapid Fire in the 6 o'clock hour. That is coming up next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Oh, yeah. Hour 2, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers. Jesse Stiers is hiding behind his video wall right now. Oh, there he is. It is rapid fire time. Sir, are you ready for it?
Yeah, there's a lot of juicy topics, so we might as well get to it.
I think so as well. I think there's a lot of meat on this bone in rapid fire today. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Diana Rossini had a weekend report for The Athletic that in addition to the New York Giants, and we all heard about, the Tennessee Titans, Cleveland Browns, and even the Pittsburgh Steelers all had internal discussions about Marcus Freeman, and that Freeman also, quote, seriously considered, end quote, making the jump to the NFL before the news of his contract broke last week.
Yeah, to me, it's a ticking time bomb, this whole situation. I think Marcus Freeman, if you asked me this a year ago, I would have told you, I don't think Marcus Freeman is going to leave for the NFL for a good at least 6-7 years, I think is what I comfortably would have said. And now I have no idea. I feel like it could be next year. It could be the year after. And I don't know. I don't know how many more of these runs that we have left with Marcus Freeman. And I think that's the disheartening part is, like I can't think of Notre Dame football without Marcus Freeman. He's been my favorite coach of my lifetime. I don't think anyone's recruited better than him. I think the success, obviously, on the field speaks volumes. And so, it's only a matter of time when you coach football at Notre Dame and you're successful and you recruit super well and you're super young and you're able to relate and connect to players. Like, yeah, all that bodes well until it's time until it's time for the NFL to come knocking. So, yeah, I guess what I'm saying to kind of sum this all up is I think Marcus Freeman is going to be off to the NFL a lot sooner than I expected and maybe sooner than most expected.
Yeah. See, Michael, I have to disagree with you on this. He says that she worked for ESPN for years and she's doing her former employer's bidding to hurt Notre Dame by writing these stories. It's not just her. There are plenty of other NFL connected reporters who are out there. Like she's just revealing that there was even more interest than was initially reported. I don't have any reason to doubt, the credibility of this. I think the interest was real. And I think Marcus Freeman's interest was real because like, this isn't the first place that I've heard that. I've heard that much more close to home, that the interest that Marcus Freeman has in the NFL is real. So to your point, Jesse, it does feel like a matter of time. And Joe is saying in the chat, if he wins the Natty, he'll be gone. And, like you do kind of have to wonder about that. Would you ride off on the horse and go pursue the next challenge if you're Marcus Freeman, if you are able to win a national championship this year? Or, I don't think that he sees a ceiling the way Brian Kelly saw a ceiling, especially since he has been able to elevate this program, obviously beyond where Kelly was when Kelly was here. But I think the interest is real. And, one of the interesting ones that she said was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that was apparently more about if Mike Tomlin were to leave or if the, Pittsburgh, for whatever reason, Mike Tomlin was gone. That was more a contingency conversation that apparently the Steelers had in regards there. But Jesse, there are several openings in the NFL right now. You've got 4 coaches fired on the NFL's Black Monday yesterday. Raiders head coach Pete Carroll gone after a 3-14 season. The Falcons fired both head coach Raheem Morris and general manager Mike Fontenot. The Cardinals fired Jonathan Gannon. Browns fired Kevin Stefanski. Giants' job was already open. They fired Brian Daboll mid-season, and that's the one that obviously Freeman was connected to. The big opening came today when the Baltimore Ravens fired John Harbaugh. But when you look at that list of what the openings would have been this year, do you think Freeman was wise to stay put at Notre Dame?
I do think he was wise to stay put at Notre Dame outside of, bias. The Raiders are a mess. They've had like 4 coaches in 4 years. They are a huge mess. Their mess is through ownership. A lot of parallels to the Cowboys, but at least the Cowboys can put 8 seasons on the field and win some divisions. And overcome some of that stuff to a degree. The Raiders just flat out stink, and they've stunk for at least the last decade, in my opinion. I think the Falcons also in a bad spot because, Kirk Cousins, not a good deal. You knew Penix had the injury issues, but you still drafted him, and now you're stuck with two quarterbacks who aren't going to pan out. And then you got rid of the GM, who also that was his bright idea to bring in both of those quarterbacks. So
to sign Cousins to the big contract and also draft Penix as high as they did. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think there's more there. Obviously, you have Bijan Robinson. I think they have some good, pieces along defense. The Cardinals, I have no clue what they're going to do. I think they're a bit of a mess. I think they're going to move on from Kyler. So you're looking at needing a new quarterback, needing a lot on offense and defense. So I don't really like that situation. And then, the Browns and Stefanski, yeah, you have a great defense, but you quite literally have nothing on offense. Like, you got a couple maybe pieces, but I'm in a group chat and they think that, that with the news of Harbaugh, they said blank check to Harbaugh. And I responded, what's enticing about Cleveland? Like, what is enticing about Cleveland? And they said the opportunity to beat Baltimore 2 years in a row. And it's like, I don't think that a coach would take a job just to beat his old team twice. It just shows you how delusional Cleveland Brown fans are. But to me,
they drafted two quarterbacks last year, and they might draft another quarterback this year. Like, what? And look at all the quarterbacks that they've drafted, and the fact, that like when you look at where the Browns organization is right now, the fact that they gave Deshaun Watson arguably the worst contract in the history of the NFL, and Stefanski got stuck with that whole deal, and he's the one that ended up getting shown the door as a result. Like, if I'm Stefanski, like, he's already in demand at other places. I think he's interviewing at Tennessee. He's going to be all over the place. He's probably going to be a head coach next year, and he's probably going to take a team to the playoff within the next 2 years, and it won't be the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, the Browns needed to fire their GM. I don't know. I don't understand why you fired Stefanski if you weren't going to fire the GM. And then last but not least, the Giants. I think the Giants is the most enticing job. I'm very nervous that Harbaugh would end up in the NFC East. They have a lot of good pieces on defense, a really good defense. Brian Burns, I think, finished second in the league in sacks. I was skeptical of Jackson Dart. I think he'll be a good player as long as he stays healthy. You'll get Malik Neighbors back. You'll get Cam Scatterboot back. I think if you drafted some offensive linemen and maybe a position player on offense, you'd be doing pretty well. I just think there's a lot of pieces in the Giants, but I'm in the same boat with the Browns that I am the Giants. I don't know why they just didn't fire their GM, I think that's his name.
Shane.
Shane. I mean, the guy's a bozo. You let Barkley go to the Eagles and they won a Super Bowl. Like, that's a fireable offense within itself.
See, I mean, they've got talent, but that's also because they've drafted so high over the last few years. So, of course, you're going to get some kind of talent when you're drafting as high as they did in the NFL. But to me, there's like such a drop off between the high end talent and just the low parts of their roster. Like, there are pieces there, but again, when you've got Joe Shane attached to it, you don't know exactly what you're going to do at quarterback. They couldn't even figure out how they wanted to play the last couple of games and potentially get the number one overall pick, which again goes back to the general manager. And that's why I don't think that that's a great position, because you've still got Joe Shane attached to it. And if you've got a general manager who is tenuous in his future, then you don't know as the head coach what's going to happen to you from one year to the next. So especially for a guy like Marcus Freeman, like, none of these teams on this list would be desirable to me if I were Marcus Freeman. Now, to your point, a more experienced coach like John Harbaugh, a more experienced NFL coach, especially like Harbaugh, like the Falcons and the Giants probably would make the most sense for a guy like Harbaugh. Like, that's what it feels like to me.
I completely agree. I think those are the two spots he's likely to end up at. I will say this, though. I'll tease this a little bit. Had the Ravens been on this list 4 weeks ago, I think Marcus Freeman would have held out even longer. I think that would have been a really, really enticing situation for him. That's a good defense. You've got freaking Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry at running back. You were going to get some offense. yeah, you're going to get some offensive linemen back. You could help, rebuild that defense to a degree. I think the Ravens would have thrown a lot at Marcus Freeman potentially, and I'm glad that this position wasn't open 2 weeks ago.
I am too. I think it would have been the best position. It is the best position right now on the board that's out there because of what
there's NFL teams rumored to be reconsidering their head coaching positions now that Harbaugh is a free agent, essentially.
And look, if you're a head coach in the NFL who's been with the organization for 18 years like Harbaugh was before he was fired today, that means there's stability in the organization, and that's a big part of this. And Sean Kelly posted this question in the YouTube chat late in the show yesterday. If people think Marcus Freeman could leave for the NFL after the 2026 season, what team or teams is he holding out for? Well, it's not Baltimore now because Baltimore is off the board. So unless they hire someone and they make a huge mistake and he's gone next year, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers is it because Mike Tomlin, there's still a lot of uncertainty. You're hearing more talk now with Mike Tomlin in terms of, what's going to, do they actually just get to the playoffs like they always do? Or does he actually win a playoff game? That's a thing. Could that, because he's been around, I think, one more year than Harbaugh was in Baltimore. And now there's talk about TV with Mike Tomlin as well. There are people talking about that, even though the TV job wouldn't pay nearly as much. But if you're Marcus Freeman, that would be sort of the crown jewel that could potentially come open next year. Because again, you talk about stability and the way the Steelers have run their organization for decades now, they have had 3 head coaches, Mike Tomlin, Bill Cowher, and Chuck Noll over the last almost 60 years as their head coaches. Each of them has won Super Bowls. They're all Hall of Fame coaches. And that is arguably the most stable organization in all of the NFL. And that would be the one, I don't know how exciting it would be to live in Pittsburgh, but that would be the one if I'm Marcus Freeman that could potentially be open next year that I would have my eye out for.
I think that there's really 4 realistic positions next season because the question was posed, what kind of opening would Marcus Freeman be holding out for? I have 4 of them written down. I think the Steelers, like you said, is top of that list. And I think that's who maybe was drawing or was getting the most interest out of him. But some other teams that I think that are out there for next season, if they don't have a particularly good season, I think you would see new head coaches. And the 3 teams I put on that list are the Indianapolis Colts. I think that would be a really big factor because of Riley Leonard. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think there's a lot of pieces there. Better organization stability than a lot of these, one positions we just talked about. And then I think a wild card would be the Miami Dolphins. I don't know how much interest there would be, but who could say no to living in Miami year round?
That's true. I think that those I hadn't even thought about Tampa Bay. I think that's a really good one. And then, like you said, the Colts are going to be a curious one because if they're not in the playoffs again next year, you probably are starting over with a new general manager. So that would make sense. You're coming in without a lame duck manager, a general manager, and instead whoever they hire as general manager is probably going to be the guy who hires you. So that's going to buy you more time right off the bat. There's a couple questions here in the YouTube chat. B. Tomey asked, why would you want to build a really good college team to go to a pro team that could have a terrible roster? And he also said, why would Freeman leave a solid position for what could be a short-term gig with an NFL team? Well, again, that's where Marcus Freeman can afford to be more choosy and, potentially you're not going to obviously handpick, but you can, he didn't go this year because, again, look at the list that we went through and the quality of those jobs. The Raiders are turning over year after year, and a lot of these others turn over. But the biggest thing is, why did Nick Saban leave college football? Transfer portal and NIL. And as a head coach in the NFL, you don't have to recruit. You don't have to, worry about, whining and dining these guys and bringing them in and, offering them all this money and have them go someplace else. And you don't have to worry about the transfer portal. It's a much more rigid, structured set of contracts and just the way things are done in the NFL. And there's a lot more free time in the offseason as well, again, because you don't have to worry about recruiting and doing all this different stuff and hosting recruits and doing all these different things in different months of the year. It's just, it is all football. And that's why so many guys want to do it. Just like the, what's his name? The guy that was the Boston College head coach. He's the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator, and he's a commodity now. He's a guy that's being talked about in terms of head coaching circles in the NFL. You know who I'm talking about?
It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, I know. It's like I can't. Skinny guy.
Jeff
Hafley. Jeff Hafley. Yes.
So I think that everything you said is true in response to B. Tomi's question, but I'm going to tell you you're overthinking it. Pro's a pro. There's only 32 positions. It's the highest pedigree you can reach as a coach and all of coaching.
No, that's a great point, because if you're asking that question like in that way, and this is again like not a negative at all, but odds are you were probably much more dyed in the wool a college football fan than NFL. So like you might have a little bit of a blind spot for the NFL. We're not thinking about it in that way.
It's still an upgrade. It's still a promotion. Yeah. It's still you're a professional. It's like anything from going an amateur to a professional. It's like and I don't mean to be crude here, but it's like asking a college football player, why don't you want to just play in college your whole life?
Right.
Like, I know that's really extreme, but it's the same.
There's also more money in the NFL.
Correct. There's more money, but obviously there's less stability. There's more turnover. And once you dip your feet into the NFL, you can't come running back. And so if Marcus Freeman is going to leave, and I think that's why he didn't, like, it's the Steelers. It's 100% the Steelers, because there's so much security in that position. They've only had like 2 or 3 head coaches all time. I think Marcus Freeman, if he signed with the Steelers, would be there at least 10 years minimum, right? And so I think that's the kind of security that he's ultimately looking for.
Yeah, Justin wants to know if Tommy Rees gets a look for a head coaching job. I would say no. He'll.
I bet he becomes the OC of the Commanders.
That's what I was going to say. He'll be an offensive coordinator someplace next year, but he's not in a position where he's going to be a head coach. I mean, like, look at you were the coordinator of a team that just got, the head coach just got fired. Now that doesn't disqualify you from other lateral type positions, but yeah, I think he'll be a coordinator at someplace. Worst case, he'll be a quarterback's coach someplace, but he's not going to be a head coach yet.
Let me ask you this: if I told you could take Harbaugh's 18-year career, or you could take 18-year career with the Ravens, or you could have 18 years with Notre Dame, what do you think majority of coaches are going to take?
They're going to take the Ravens.
Okay. Thank you.
It's not. There's not even going to be much pause to it. You asked me what a majority of coaches are going to say. That's what they're going to say, because again,
I think some coaches have completely committed themselves to being a lifetime college coach, and that's okay. That's what they want to do. But to me, there's the highest level you can reach is being a coach in the NFL.
Bernie says Reese is going to be on the short list for all these NFL head coaching jobs. I don't agree with that. Not at all. Again, he'll be a coordinator, but it's going to take him a few years. Minimum 3 years. Write it down. I said it here first. Minimum 3 years before Tommy Rees is a head coach. He's not ready to be a head coach yet. Like if you were asking me Notre Dame or the Raiders as an example, I would probably take Notre Dame, especially if you're going to be there for 18 years, because just all you've got to do is look at recent history, and it's going to tell you you're not going to be the Raiders head coach very long.
And I think that's why Freeman is picking and choosing.
Right. Exactly. We'll take a timeout, and we'll actually talk about that and more Notre Dame football coming up next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com and Rapid Fire. We continue Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Rapid fire on this Tuesday. Glad to have you with us here today. Talking a lot of Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman, NFL coaching talk with Black Monday yesterday and all these other coaches' positions opening up. Bernie says Reese is young and really smart, and he is competing against morons. I buy the first two, young and really smart. I don't know he's necessarily competing against a bunch of morons. They're, depending on which team that you might happen to be going up against. I just think that it's not quite Tommy Reese's time yet. I think he's going to be a coordinator for a few more years, and eventually he'll be a head coach in the NFL. That's what he wanted to do. That's been, I think, part of his goal. And I think that ultimately he will. I just don't think it's his time just yet. Fill in the blank. The Raiders firing Pete Carroll after one season is blank.
It's just a continuous, and I want to use a different word here, but I'll call it a crap show. That's what the Raiders are. It's just, and to me, it's really baffling. Because why did you hire Pete Carroll if you were just going to fire him after 1 year? You knew you were going to be bad this year, and all of your issues are really at the top as an organization when it comes to the Raiders. And so, was the whole plan just to hire Pete Carroll for the season, let him take his lumps, get the number 1 draft pick, and then take a quarterback, and then now you've got a quarterback in Ashton Genty, and let's cut it loose here in 2026. To me, there had to be some overarching master plan. If Pete Carroll did well, obviously you were going to keep him and let him go, keep him, allow him to kind of keep going. But the fact that they were horrible, they get the number 1 pick again. It's just, he's the scapegoat at the end of the day for just a horribly, awfully run organization.
You knew this was going to be relatively short term because the guy is 74 now, so it wasn't going to last forever. But at the same time, did you just bring him in to be the worst team in the league and get the number 1 pick? That's kind of what it feels like to me right now. It definitely, Tyler says, hilarious just because it's the most Raiders thing ever. I mean, they have had, since 2001, they have had 14 head coaches. John Gruden has been the head coach twice. So that means they've made 15 hires. Now that includes interims as well, because they've had a couple of interims because they've gone through so many guys. It's just unreal. And again, that's what, stay as far away as you can from the Raiders organization. It is not good news. And I'll just spin it in another direction. How about Dylan McCullough leaving a team that just played for a college football national championship last year and joined up with Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly? They got rid of Chip Kelly before the season was even over with. Chip is now going to be going back to college to coach at Northwestern, which seems astounding that that's even going to happen. But Dylan McCullough, man, made that move, and it obviously was a big roll of the dice. Did not work out for him by any stretch.
No, it did not. And it's really unfortunate for someone like Dylan McCullough, because it's I get it, the temptation was there, but he kind of should have done the Marcus Freeman thing and waited for a much more stable opening to come up. I just don't know what the Raiders are going to do. I quite honestly don't care, because I don't really care about the Raiders. If they're bad, they're bad.
No, because the odds are they're going to be looking for another head coach in 2 years. I mean, again, when you've hired 14 coaches, 15 guys in 25 years, that's more than every other year you're looking for a coach. That's again, run away from the Raiders. Don't go anywhere near them, whether you're a head coach or an assistant. If you're an assistant and you're desperate for a job, that's one thing. But the Raiders just make no sense. Mark Davis has just been a continuation of Al Davis. And I saw somebody say earlier something about the Raiders are better than the Cowboys. Let's not go that far. Let's not quite stretch it to that extent.
You can say a lot of stuff, but that you can't. One you can't.
I think Al Davis is probably Jerry Jones' idol, but let's not quite go that far just yet. Fill in the blank. Kirby Smart trying to run the fake punt / hard count play that Notre Dame ran against Georgia in last year's Sugar Bowl last week was blank.
To me, it's flattering. The old saying, imitation is the best form of, flattering, or however it goes. Like, if you know that play not only impressed Kirby Smart because he's one of the best college minds in all of college football, but it also had to piss him off a lot in order to want to replicate that play and then also use it in a high leverage situation. So again, to me, it's extremely flattering. And I think that it just shows, the creativity of Marcus Freeman and the special teams unit at the end of the day. But I know that he was watching that play back on film and was just cursing underneath his breath, and then finally came to the realization, you know what? I might have to use that play myself.
Apparently, Mr. Poli says Kirby had already run that play twice this season, which kind of makes it more baffling that he would be trying it again, because Notre Dame saved it for just the right occasion. So it was never on film. Nobody was ready for it. And Kirby Smart even said after the game that they weren't supposed to snap the football, so it felt like probably Ole Miss was ready for it, and they obviously stuffed it. I think it's hilarious, though. They got burned by it last year in a huge game in the Sugar Bowl by the Fighting Irish, and then he rolled it out and used it this year. I didn't realize he had run it a few more times prior to that as well, but kind of even more funny that it blew up on him in such a big stage. So Riley Leonard started for the Colts in the regular season finale against the Texans. He played pretty well. Do you buy or sell the Colts should have just gone with him rather than bringing back puffed up Phillip Rivers out of retirement?
This is a sell for me. I know on paper a lot of people have said, oh, you should have just kind of cut ties, put Riley Leonard out there, and moved on and see what you had. The Colts were in still serious playoff contention. They were still in. I think there was still a chance to win the division. There obviously was a chance to win the wild card. As much as I would like to see Riley Leonard out there early, he was a little bit banged up. They still had playoff chances. I do think that while Phillip Rivers, he was out there and he did a job, it would have been really cool to see Riley Leonard. But he did do
a job. Did he do a good job?
No, and it's.
I got a lot of respect for a guy like Rivers, who's been out of the league for 5 years, coming back. He can barely throw the ball downfield, doing what he did with 8 million kids and the whole thing. Got a lot of respect for him, but I tend to think that they would have been better off just rolling with Riley Leonard and, not just, playing for now and for the future as well. I think that they probably would have won at least one of those games had Rivers been the quarterback.
I think what's more fascinating to talk about seeing Riley Leonard play is who says Riley Leonard can't throw the football. Did you see some of those passes?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we all saw the deep bomb. That is what it is. Every NFL quarterback should be.
Well, I was going to say they brought him in. There was like the end. It was either end of half or end of game where they had to throw a deep ball, and they took Rivers off the field and they let Riley Leonard go out there and throw one deep to the end zone. Did you see that?
I did see that. I was just fascinated with some of the over the middle of the field passes. Kind of like I saw like a 20-yard corner route that he hit over the middle of the field. I thought that was super impressive.
Yeah.
I just saw a lot of throws that I never saw him attempt at Notre Dame. And I think that we didn't see him attempt because there was this preconceived notion that he couldn't spin the ball with the best of them. But what I saw of Riley Leonard throwing the ball on Sunday, he could be in the NFL. And I tweeted this, and I mean this in complete honesty. And I said this before he was even drafted. He's a project. He's going to take some time. But he could play like Josh Allen in 5 years, in my opinion. He's got the arm. He's got the mobility. Yeah. He's got the size. I think if you let him develop in the NFL, he puts on a little bit more muscle. He's got the frame. And now that I've seen some of this arm talent, Josh Allen wasn't great in his first couple of years, and he definitely wasn't great throwing the ball. I think there's a lot of parallels between Riley Leonard.
I said this when Riley Leonard went to the Colts and we saw him play an exhibition game or two. One, to your point about the passes that we didn't see him attempt, you could see that right away. He was throwing passes with the Colts that he wasn't attempting last year with Notre Dame, which stood out right away. But two, I think that Riley Leonard is going to end up being for the Colts what they thought Anthony Richardson was going to be when they drafted him a couple of years ago. I think that he's going to be a better version of Anthony Richardson. And I think that by the end of, it's going to depend on, do they go out? Do they bring somebody? Like, what are they going to do? Is it going to be all Daniel Jones next year? At least you found a quarterback in Jones that you can win games with. But I think in the very near future, Riley Leonard is going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And I agree with what you're saying about the Josh Allen comparison. Because remember, he was maybe even, especially from a passing standpoint, at least from a completion percentage standpoint, he was even more probably a project than Leonard was when he was coming out of Wyoming when the Bills drafted him a few years back.
I 100% agree. A lot of people are making fun of me because of this Josh Allen thing. He plays the most similar to Josh Allen. I obviously don't think he'd be.
I'm not going to say he's going to be Josh Allen, but he's got a similar game.
And I think that he's someone, and I think you bring up a good point. Whatever
happens. He's not saying that Riley Leonard is going to be Josh Allen tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think you said 3 years down the line.
Actually. I think I said 3 to 5.
Yeah.
But, a large part of this depends on what the Colts do next year. Do they bring in a new coaching staff? Do they bring in a new GM? Does that flush out someone like Riley Leonard? So it's all situationally based.
After 2026?
Yeah, after 2026. Yeah. I'm just glad. Like, I always thought Riley Leonard deserved to be on an NFL roster, whether he was a starter or not. I'm just glad that he's proving to be productive. And I think someone else also brought up a great point in the chat. This has to be his most healthy year ever playing quarterback, because he didn't have to play quarterback. He just sat and got backup reps.
Yeah.
And really probably got to heal a lot this year.
Taking hits. Yeah, that's exactly right. Let's take our final timeout. We got a couple more topics to go in rapid fire. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down, rapid fire, Budweiser's weekday sports beat with irishbreakdown.com. Sean Stiers, Jesse Stiers on the show today. Got a mailbag show coming up tomorrow, so don't forget to be here and bring your Notre Dame football questions. I imagine we're going to talk about transfer portal on tomorrow's show. That would be my guess. Speaking of the transfer portal, this just came across a little bit ago. The Wake Forest defensive lineman, Mateen
I saw that.
Barogba has committed to Texas Tech. So, again, going back to the statement that I made earlier in the show when I was talking about him, if there's any doubt that he was chasing the biggest check that he could find, I think that pretty much answers it, doesn't it?
It does. And I heard it.
Power to him. It's his right. But I'm just saying, like if you're disappointed as a Notre Dame fan that you didn't get him, I mean, just basically.
There's no better time to be a 3-star or 4-star recruit in the portal because you are seen as gold, and you're going to get probably a higher paycheck than some of these 5-star recruits are getting, like we talked about. I just quick comment about Texas Tech. I don't understand what the infatuation with Sorsby, the Cincinnati quarterback. I don't think he's that great, and I know Texas Tech had to shell out a lot of money to get him. I think that's a lot of money wasted. I don't think he's going to do anything down at Texas Tech, but I digress.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. If he's got more around him than what he had at Cincinnati, and if the coaching's any better, and system's any better, I don't know. But I don't disagree with that. What I've seen of Sorsby, but is what it is, I guess. Tuco, we were talking about Riley Leonard, says, wasn't he hurt when they brought in Rivers? He was, but he was. That was the first week. I think by the second week, Rivers was there. Riley Leonard was physically able to play. Irish Chi-Town said he heard Tom Brady's going to pick the new head coach for the Raiders. Well, yeah, he helped pick Pete Carroll last year too. How'd that turn out? So, Stymie is asking. Are you still coaching basketball, Jesse?
Yeah, I just actually signed up for this season.
Oh, you brought that headache upon yourself again, huh?
I did.
Just can't stay away. He wants to know if you've done a Shrewsbury yet. He says it's like a desk pop, but in sports.
No, I have not aggressively went after or charged an official. Have we had a conversation post-game? Sure. But never to the point where I was running after someone.
Speaking of head coaches, what do you think about this talk about Phillip Rivers as an NFL head coach?
Stupid.
I do too.
The guy came back and showed you that he could play quarterback in his 40s, and now all of a sudden he's a head coaching candidate. Right. How about Carson Palmer, who just won Max Prep's high school coach of the year? I think he's probably got more credentials, and I know Phillip Rivers coaches in high school and all that stuff as well. He knows the game, but any NFL quarterback who played 20 years is going to have a lot of freaking knowledge of football, Right. So it's
most of them are offensive coordinators or quarterbacks coaches first.
Right. So. You can't tell me that just because you saw him play average to below average quarterback for 3 games that he's all of a sudden this head coaching candidate. I want to throw out there as well. I saw this during the interview when I was trolling people on Twitter during your interview with Vanessa De Jesus. Jason Garrett is taking an interview with the Titans.
I was going to mention that. I'm glad you brought it up. What do you think about that one?
Good for Jason Garrett.
Yeah.
I don't know why the Titans are even extending that guy an interview.
I don't either, man.
He should just take that gig with NBC and run with it for the rest of his life.
I know. Because
I just don't understand what he thinks he has to offer to the NFL. He was the most bland, least innovative coaches for however long he was with Dallas. And it's you think that's going to get you another job to be successful?
Right. You were as vanilla as possible.
If you're the New York Giants, freaking hire Jason Garrett, baby. I'll make the sales pitch for you.
Well, he already got the chance to be offensive coordinator there, and that didn't work out very well either. I did want to ask you, Did you watch any of the Tampa Bay Carolina Panthers?
The whole game.
Okay, so you saw the ESPN 3-man booth. Chris Fowler, play-by-play, Dan Orlovsky, Louis Riddick doing the color. It has been pretty universally criticized. What did you think of their performance?
Yeah, I just kind of want to get ahead of this right now. I feel like I was a hater of the Orlovsky and Riddick booth before it was cool to be a hater of the Orlovsky and Riddick booth. I'll start with Chris Fowler. Doesn't belong. That's a college guy. All he does is college. Why he's invited to the NFL
not even
table.
the best college guy that ESPN has doing play-by-play.
Right. Like, I know the guy doesn't follow the NFL. He definitely doesn't follow enough to be doing a freaking, winner-take-all almost potentially game between the Buccaneers and Panthers. So, like, he's not Kirk Herbstreit. And even Kirk Herbstreit is bad in the NFL. So that was mistake number one. Chris Fowler. Having a 3-person booth is mistake number 2. Having Orlovsky and Riddick be the people who comprise that is mistake number 3, because the whole time you've got Dan Orlovsky, offense guy. You got Louis Riddick. I want to be a GM for the last decade, but no one will hire me to be a GM, defensive-minded guy. And the whole time they're just one-upping each other.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Each other.
All they wanted to do was prove to each other, prove to everyone how much each of them knew. Yeah, that's all they were doing. They wouldn't shut up the whole time, and that's part of the problem with a 3-man booth.
Just
and
let the game breathe.
Yeah, I think that these networks think that because they don't have a lot of experience, like if you put 3 people together, it's going to fill in the gaps. Well, you don't need the constant Orlovsky upping Riddick and Riddick upping Orlovsky. Personally, either one of them I think would have been just fine, but having them together was just a nightmare.
There's just too much in the room. And every time I listen to Louis Riddick, I just think of it's like an open audition for him every game he does. It's like, dude, I know you know football, but no one is going to hire you as a GM. So just stop.
Right.
Just stop.
Stop thinking you're proving something to somebody, because it's not happening.
It's like he thinks it's an open interview to every NFL team. I'm Louis Riddick, and I know so much about football. It's like, obviously, dude.
Exactly. All right, we're going to wrap it up with that. We've got more Notre Dame football talk and other topics coming up on tomorrow's show. Thanks to Vanessa De Jesus for being on the show earlier today from Notre Dame women's basketball. Thanks to Jesse, as always. And don't forget, 2 Pros and a Cup of Joe, our new morning show, 6 a.m. weekdays with Brady Quinn and LeVar Arrington here on Sports Radio WSBT. They've got a YouTube channel as well. Wake Up the Echoes is coming up next.